West Hawk Lake is located in the Whiteshell Provincial Park in southeastern Manitoba in western Canada. It's an hour and 50-minute drive thereabout from Winnipeg to West Hawk on the Trans-Canada Highway, which is roughly 160 kilometers. The lake is the deepest lake in Manitoba at 115 meters or 377 feet deep. It is caused by an impact crater and has a width and length around 4 kilometers or just over 2 miles. At a surface elevation of 329 meters above sea level or 1,079 feet, it is one of the most sought after places for divers in Manitoba and northern Ontario. It contains 12 islands, one of which is called Peanut Island, which is located just off of Miller Beach. It's a lake that you cannot take for granted. It's known as a dark water lake for scuba divers, and at the first 10 feet depth, it is relatively cold at about 18 degrees Celsius when it's the height of summer. Don't get fooled by the visibility here, as we see the fish and plant life in the first 5 to 10 feet of water. It is a dark lake, meaning that at depth 30 feet and deeper, the lake is dark and cold. At 80 feet, the water temperature, typical sunny summer day, is only 6 degrees Celsius. What you're seeing right now is a dive that the three of us undertook, going towards a rendezvous point in the first 12 feet of water. Divers over the years have placed lines for navigational purposes. This dive is a special dive, as we are looking for what is known as the habitat. The habitat was put in the water back in the 1980s when scuba divers were using it for a place to stay at depth. Anchored at 80 feet of water, the habitat rose up to about 60 feet, where one could go underneath it, fill it with air, and sit and play cards. In the late 1990s, this habitat was seen as a hazard and was sunk in its spot. Common in this area, as you could see from the video, is rock bass, and is a favorite fishing spot for many fishers. Our plan was to identify a route where we could search for the habitat. In the summer of 2017, the habitat went missing by a number of divers that decided to try to move it as a salvage exercise. During that salvage exercise, the habitat was lost. My team, made up of Wong and Ben and myself, Todd, watched the video of the loss of the habitat and tried to determine where it went. Seeing that it was beside a wall, we decided that it may never have gone over the wall and it may be somewhere along the wall. The plan was to go out 100 feet from the wall and search for the habitat. This is the adventure that was taken. So what we've done is we've decided here is we're following a line. This line takes us to what is known as the treasure chest. The treasure chest, which is located at the south end of the wall. The south end of the wall travels just over 300 meters towards Peanut Island and reaches depths of 80 to 90 feet. As you can see from the video here, the bottom of this lake is very murky. It has a mud and sand mix and can easily be stirred up, causing poor visibility. Transversing this line towards the treasure chest is pretty well a non-event, in that there's not much to see. An odd rock formation may appear here or there, but for the most part, it's just sand and mud. Larger rocks that you see are either from the ejecta from the meteor impact, or rocks that have appeared due to the Ice Age. The water color is typically a green color, as depicted in this video, and will become increasingly darker as we get deeper. Lights on this exhibition were important to have, as you could see as we enter the treasure chest area, it'll get dark very quickly. The treasure chest is located roughly 60 to 65 feet underwater, and where the temperature of the water is roughly 8 degrees Celsius. Here you see me and Ben pulling out a tether line. We're going to tether each other using the D-clips on our vests to be able to search the area. Like anything else underwater, you plan that it won't get tangled, and after a period of time, only 10 minutes into the dive, really, you could see that everything got tangled. You could also see that the bottom of the lake is getting murky as we've dumped our air and we are untangling while on the ground of the lake. The tether line is made up of two 40-foot dog leashes, actually, connected using just the standard C-clip. This will give us an 80-foot span, and moving roughly 5 to 10 feet away from the wall, where visibility of the wall is still available, we could easily reach out to 90 to close to 100 feet away from the wall. Again, lighting is very important in this case. Wong, who is our videographer, is videotaping Ben and I as we execute our plan. We gave each other the okay, and now we're off. I will be against the wall, and Ben will move ever so slightly away from the wall, up to a point of 80 feet, until our tether line is firm. Wong will be transversing the tether line back and forth, ensuring that everything is good to go. We're determining our plan. As you can see, the background here, it's got pretty murky all of a sudden because we were on the bottom. We are going to clear this murk area, and Ben is going to move away from the wall. I will be the guiding force, if you will, as I navigate the northern direction of the wall. Ben is moving eastward away from the wall, and once our line is taut, we'll continue moving the same direction as I am. The planned dive at 80 feet is 40 minutes. So we are anticipating 10 minutes to get to the site, 20 minutes looking for the habitat, and 10 minutes to get back. What you're seeing here is Wong and Ben as they are now well deep into the depths of the lake. I am at the wall. And as you can see, it's very dark without lighting. Not much to see at this depth at the bottom of the lake. As you can see, it's still pretty murky. You get down to the bottom and you could stir it up very easily. At this depth, we're at roughly at 85 feet, and the water temperature is 6 degrees Celsius. I'm at the wall, which is roughly 80 feet. As you can see, there's my light shining out in the darkness. And we come back to me to determine where we're going to go next, because we haven't found it yet. And now at 15 minutes into the dive, an air check is warranted at this depth. We validate that our air is still good, and we will now proceed going out to the 85-90 feet away from the wall, and I will maintain that conductivity towards the wall so that we don't get lost. Continuing to head in a northerly direction, spanning 80 feet between Ben and myself. Wong is transversing the line back and forth and assisting in the search. So far, all we're seeing is rocks and sand and dirt. Oh, looks like Wong got himself tangled a bit. That's okay, he'll untangle himself. And we'll continue on our merry way. At 18 minutes into the dive, we still haven't found any sign of the habitat. And then, boom, it shows up. There we have it. An old septic tank. Still in good condition. Relatively speaking, it's been in the water since the 1980s, so it's been a while. Wong informs me that we have found the tank, and as you can see from my light at 80 feet between us, it is very dim. Without that light, they would never know where I am. Wong approaches me to inform me that the discovery's been made. And he will stay at the wall as I travel towards the tank. Once Ben reaches the wall himself, we'll switch off. But there is an eerie feeling there when these guys are so far away, you just see a hint of a light. As I mentioned, it's eerie, but at the same time it's very uplifting and comforting to know that there is a quietness while you're underwater. The switch off has been made. I am now going on to the habitat, and we will now look at it. I get to see it firsthand. Loop around it, kick it a couple times. Surprisingly, it fell quite nicely. It fell straight down. It didn't fall on its side. It was like purposely placed there. Approaching it, it feels like you're going towards a UFO that sunk millions of years ago. I'm still at the habitat, and we have Wong heading back to the wall to inform Ben that we should be probably heading back. We've been under the water now for over 20 minutes, and at a depth of 90 feet, we need to do some decompression stops along the way. One of the decompression stops that we'll have to take is at about 30 feet. And when we do that decompression stop, it's a 2-minute wait. However, because we are able to travel at 30 feet of water for those 2 minutes, we won't stop. We'll just maintain a depth of 30 feet and continue down that path. We find a guideline and follow it up. Looking at our air pressure, we are now in the process of determining fastest path back. We only have about 15 minutes of air left, and we have to deal with a decompression stop on top of it. So the quickest path back is the way we want to go. But before we do that, I'm going to wind up our guide wire and make sure we could take it back. It is so important to have a tether line at these depths when you're traveling far away from each other, to ensure that we're always connected and we won't get lost. Or at least if we do get lost, we get lost together. We validate our air consumption, and now we are heading back. I suggest we take a compass heading of 210 degrees east of south and head straight back that way, as opposed to following the guide wires, simply because they have a tendency to go from point A to point B and not necessarily back to the shoreline in a straight manner. We only have about 10 minutes of air left, and we need to get back. Traveling around at the 35-40 foot mark, there's plenty to see when it comes to rock formations. As you can see along this wall cliff, it is a fun area to be in, and plenty of divers love to hang out in this area. Making sure that we aren't in a decompression situation, we slowly move along until we meet up with this white-yellow line. This line is a bead back to the platform at 12 feet. So we will take this run and get back as straight as possible. As you can see from the area that we're looking at here, lots of rocks, lots of rock formations. It's not as empty as it was on the way out. Typically in this area, there are rock bass and other little fishes, as well as crayfish. We do a little look back, making sure that everybody is on the same path and heading back in the right direction. Again, visibility is very poor, about 20 feet, so you could easily lose someone. Not much to see at this depth as we are moving closer towards the shoreline. The visibility doesn't improve much, despite the fact that we are getting in shallower water. At 30 minutes into the dive, we are now at roughly 25 feet of water, and only less than 10 minutes before we get to our shoreline. which is Miller Beach. As you can see, in the 20 to 15 feet of water, we are starting to see less rocks, but more growth. Water temperature is now much warmer at roughly 12 degrees Celsius. As mentioned, when it comes to diving in Manitoba, West Hawk Lake is one of the most favorite spots in Manitoba to dive. Despite the fact of its clarity, it is a clear lake. It is cold and it is dark, making it one of the most interesting technical dives you could have. The advantage of doing these types of dives, besides honing your skills in search and recovery, as well as environmental conditions on the more extreme side of things, you start to get a comfort level, making it easier to do dives in oceans where the water temperatures are warmer. Well, they're warmer if you're in more exotic places like the Caribbean or something. We are now reaching an old platform that was one of the original platforms put out back in the 1980s. From there, we will head to the 12-foot platform. It's interesting to see how pitted the bottom is and what causes that. I don't know. But it is interesting. We're right now doing a 2-minute safety stop in roughly 12 feet of water. As you can see, there's somebody else in the dive that wasn't part of our group. That appears to be a part of another team that is also doing a safety stop. So at roughly 34 minutes into our dive, we are doing our last safety stop before we get to the surface. Unlike the 30-foot safety stop where we were able to traverse the area at 30 feet, we don't get that luxury here because we're only a few minutes away from the shoreline, and the elevation or the depth quickly decreases from 12 feet to, or correction, unlike the 30-foot safety stop where we were able to traverse a good area of space, we are unable to do that at the 12-foot mark, simply because we're only a couple minutes away from the shoreline, and during that descent, the shoreline rapidly approaches from 12 feet to 5 feet to 3 feet to surface in less than a couple of minutes. Now at the 2-minute mark, we will slowly head back. Well, I hope you enjoyed our little adventure. We weren't sure if we were actually going to find the habitat, but we did. The goal now is to mark it, which we have, and at some point in time we might salvage it, unless somebody beats us to it now that it's been identified and published well in advance. So if you're a scuba diver and you're ever in Manitoba, check us out. It is a fun lake to dive. There's always somebody there. And if you're ever interested in doing a dive, please come on down to one of the many dive centers that are here. I'm actually a member of Blue Oasis Dive Club. But there are plenty of others out there that are willing to take you for a spin in the water. Happy diving.